What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at St. Vitus for the third day in a row, and today we are here with one of Colorado's finest, Havok. Thank you all so much for being here.
Ooh, yeah!
Thanks a lot for having us.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, of course. Being that the latest record is Conformicide, and it's been out now for about a year, how has the record cycle been thus far?
Busy. Very busy. We tour a lot.
So busy. We did a lot of touring on this cycle. It's one of the busiest cycles I've ever been a part of, actually, touring schedule-wise, album push. We had a strong push for this album, you know?
Yeah. We like to hit the road a lot.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You've been around a couple of times in New York City on this record cycle, and the last time I saw you guys was on that Overkill and Crowbar tour.
Yeah.
Was it Metal Alliance or Metal Allegiance?
Metal Alliance.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
Metal Allegiance is the Dave Ellison thing.
Yeah, and you guys are absolutely kick-ass. What I was curious is, do you prefer to add, like, newer songs onto the set list when the record's been out for a while and it's been processed, or do you tend to like to add as many new songs as possible when you release the record?
We were adding a bunch of new stuff right when it came out. Even before it came out, we were playing new stuff because it's fun to play new shit.
Yeah, I think it was like, we start out, I think it was like an ease up type of a thing, though. So it's like, you start with one new song, and then closer to the record came out, I think we started doing Hang 'em High around like January, and then once the record was out, then we're up to like 3 or 4 songs, and now it's some of the times it's like 6 songs. It could be like the majority of the set is new stuff, which is cool. Because you're always going to get the old stuff, you know what I mean? And an album only has so much time, I think, for it to have that amount of push. You know what I mean? Like, if you come out and the next record comes out, we're going to want to be playing those songs. So the Conformicide stuff's going to get cut down naturally. So I think it's like, this is the time if you want to check those songs out to come see us. So you have, I think, like maybe 8 shows left this year.
Now, I've seen you guys play with a lot of different bands. The first time I saw you guys was with Megadeth, Suicidal Tendencies, and Children of Bodom, and then I saw you on the Overkill show with Crowbar, and now you're doing the show with Jungle Rot. So, like, from thrash bands to Crowbar, more of like a sludgier band, to touring with a death metal band. Do you notice maybe like a different type of audience or different reaction depending on who you tour with?
Reaction's normally pretty decent because I think we're a live band. That's where we thrive. But we definitely see new people at the shows. Makes a big difference on like who's checking us out, depending on if we're touring with a power metal band or death metal band or shit like that, which is good because we don't want the same people showing up every time. It's nice to play in front of people that normally wouldn't come to a Havok show.
Yeah, playing in front of we really think doing stuff like playing in front of the Killswitch crowd, because like the Anthrax crowd, naturally it's just so genre similar that those people are gonna probably naturally be more inclined to like our stuff. So to play in front of like the Killswitch crowd was really cool because it's like we may not be something that they would have listened to or liked, but once they get a chance to see us live, then it works out really well that way. So we really enjoyed playing with those guys, and like hopefully in the future we'll get to do more stuff like that where we go into genres that are maybe on a bigger accessibility platform, as far as like the those festival, like all the festivals that are kind of popping up around the States, Riot Fest and stuff like that. Those type of like bigger, even rock bands, like I think we could totally play for those dudes, play along with those dudes, and get those fans that are kind of on the border of like, oh, maybe they're rock radio people, but they would listen to us and dig it because it's not quite so brutal as like Cookie Monster vocals and that kind of stuff. We're in that line where it's kind of like, you could grab somebody that's like a Five Finger Death Punch fan probably and get them to be like, hey, check this out, because it's not, Deicide or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And you can like go out with a band like Deicide or a band like Five Finger Death Punch, and it's got to keep it interesting. And I imagine since you also play with Cephalic Carnage, I almost totally destroyed that.
Oh, no, you're good.
But I'd imagine, because that band is way more brutal and like more kind of like catered to the death metal audience.
Yeah,
it's got to be like, in a way, like a bit of a breath of fresh air to go out and play with different bands.
Yeah, it's really cool. I always love getting to do the difference. It was really fun getting to do the double duty thing with that tour we just did, because it's like literally like, all right, take a 40-minute break and then go do something totally different, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's got to be a different mind frame playing for both bands too.
Yeah, totally. And I sing and Cephalic like half half the time. You know what I mean? Like full parts and stuff. So it was cool to like get to do that, and then for the next one I don't have to sing, and I can drink a little more when I don't have to sing, because like alcohol just dries your shit out, for me anyways. I think for Dave too. So we have to wait till after the show to drink. So
Now, being that you guys, Havok now has a bunch of albums out, has every record been a completely different experience when making it, and like a new approach, or at this point do you kind of like have a mode that you always go into when writing music?
Well, every record that we do, everyone's more knowledgeable about things, and we've learned tricks and kind of have a bigger toolbox every time we go in, which I think really helps and makes for a more interesting record. Next one will probably stretch out the box a little further and get weirder.
Weirder. That sounds good. Well, I'd imagine because, Havok has elements of thrash metal and death metal, and I even see some hardcore elements in your music too. I'd imagine that every record you kind of, because, there's some bands that kind of have like, they're a death metal band, or they're a black metal band, there are a thrash metal band. It seems like you guys don't really necessarily have to be pigeonholed in that category, right?
Yeah, we genre hop a little bit, and if you're really listening for it, you can hear a lot of non-metal influences in our music.
yeah.
I think they slip under the radar with casual listener, but if you're listening for it, you can hear some weirdo influences.
Yeah, I think
definitely.
you definitely hear the funk. But I've always heard funk in metal. You know what I mean? Like when I listen to funk, if you just hear the trumpet and the horn stabs
Absolutely.
as palm muted chunked guitars, it's totally fucking. To me, I'm like, it's got to be like there's some kind of a tie into the history of funk and metal, like,
Well, look at Pantera. Look at Pantera. I mean, Dimebag, regardless of how groovy it is, those are straight up blues riffs that he was playing. So.
right. Mm-hmm.
Funk is really heavy. It's just not minor. It's not evil. It's happy, but it's heavy. It's
Right.
just as heavy as metal. It's just not fucking,
It's
angry and depressing. It's uplifting and stoked.
it's
Yeah.
the glam part of metal, if anything. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
It's the glam grind.
The glam grind. I like
Yeah,
that.
you look
Bell,
like
bell-bottom metal.
you look like Motley Crue, but sound like Napalm Death.
Wow. People watching this are going to get some ideas.
That's
It'll
a
be
Len
credited to
joke.
you
I
guys.
stole that. If you're watching, I'm sorry, Len.
Yeah. Now, in the songwriting process of Havok, is there ever like a concept that you guys think of and kind of write according around that concept, or do you guys have to like, hear some music and, play around with some riffs and beats in order to maybe come up with a lyrical form?
Normally, throughout the history of the band, the music comes first and then figure out the lyrics later. But on the last record, there was a lot of lyrics already written before the music was completed. And going forward into the next one, I've got a lot of lyrics already up the sleeve that will figure out where to place them. But normally it starts with like, if the music, I've got all these different subject matters written down, and then I listen to the music and try to figure out which lyrical content fits the vibe of a specific musical piece best. Because there's definitely, if there's a song that's like about, war or something like that, you find like a more militant sounding piece of music. I think that's very fitting. But it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes the words don't fit in the song where you want them to.
Yeah, too many syllables, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But I'd imagine, since you mentioned that you have like lyrics to that, like for Conformicide, that you had some lyrics written down, did that at all determine the music, or did you just like hear the music and like split it up and be like, okay, sing this over that, sing this over that?
That's kind of how it works, yeah. And try to make it not too insanely challenging where the guitar and the vocals are going on at the same time.
Okay.
Because I can only split my brain in half so far.
Yeah.
You know?
And singing
Have you
and
used a like an orbital saw?
I haven't tried the orbital saw yet.
You should be able to get it clean, like 100%
clean straight in half.
in half. I can help you if you want.
Like an anatomy book.
Now, one question I was really curious about, we started talking about this a little bit before we started rolling, but the Denver, Colorado scene, I mean, you guys and Five Finger Death Punch definitely have, I would say, are the two bands a lot of people think of now, especially like in terms of a modern day, but, Jag Panzer coming
Jack
from,
Panzer.
who we just interviewed earlier this month.
Mm-hmm.
And, with a lot of like doom metal bands coming out of there, such as Chemist or Primitive Man,
Primitive Man,
Spectral
yeah.
Voice, Wayfair. So
Yeah,
the-
Wayfair, I know Joey. Yeah, he's a good
they're
buddy.
so good. That new record is so awesome.
Yeah, I haven't checked it out. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to listen to it.
But was there like a scene that you guys kind of like cut your teeth in before like you started touring, or were you a band that kind of like had to go outside your state lines in order to get the name of Havok out there more?
We played a lot locally in the early years, and then as soon as I got out of high school, we started touring and trying to put Denver on the map, so to speak. Like there was already bands like Cephalic out there doing it, but there was not a lot of bands that were from Denver that were touring. So, for the last 13 years, we've been busting our ass getting out of town, because I think you can only go so far if you play your home state all the time.
That's 100% true for
Radius close.
for Denver specifically, for Colorado specifically. Like the reason I think Cephalic was able to get out, because I was in other bands before Cephalic, and it was kind of a mystery, as to how they did it. Or it seemed like it was a mystery as to how did you guys get signed? How did you guys get get out there and stuff? And that was the first thing I learned when I joined that band. Is they're like, dude, we left. We got in the van and we drove, and you got to drive, 7 hours down to Albuquerque, or 8 hours to Salt Lake City, or 8 hours east to Omaha. Like everything's so far away. It's not like the East Coast where you can just go a couple hours and be in a new market.
Yeah,
so
we're isolated.
we're super isolated. So the reason bands make it out of Colorado, and maybe that'll change as there is so many new bands. I didn't even hear half those bands you were talking about. So there is so many new bands coming out of Colorado, I think now that it may be something to where you can kind of have things happen without getting in the van and getting out there and forcing yourself to be literally present your stuff outside of our market. But when we were coming up and stuff, there was just no way to just make it by just playing locally. You had to just force putting it together, figure it out, DIY.
Maybe there's another way, but that's the tried and true, definitely going to get results way to do it.
Well, there's a famous saying: a real musician has $50,000 worth of gear, rents a $5,000 van, drives 500 miles to play a $50 gig.
Yep.
Yep.
Amen.
Yep. Here we are in
We're
Brooklyn.
traveling
Here we are in
t-shirt
Brooklyn doing
salesmen.
that.
We're just playing the jingles to try to get you to buy the shirt.
Yeah.
Buy the shirt, you
Yeah.
fucking asshole.
We need to write that song, Buy the Shirt.
Buy the shirt, yeah. I had a band back in the day that I was talking about, this band called Ain Matter, and we would put in the samples in between songs and stuff, real low. We would put little subliminal go buy our t-shirts, go buy our merch, little subliminal things just to help people know that that's actually how anybody does anything anymore in music, because there's no money left.
Well, I recently proposed an idea, and I've mentioned this to a lot of bands. What bands should do is they should make sandwich cards for their merch that you would sell them. And if, every time every time they see you play, you get it stamped. And then maybe after the 10th time, after paying 9 times to see you guys, the 10th show is free.
That's kind of a
pretty good
cool idea.
Never
I
thought
like
about
that idea. How do you?
Stolen.
I know a lot of guys that are really good at finding the stamp shape, or the cardboard cutout shape for the coffee places, though, so that they can just wheeze it. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to figure out
Custom.
we'll have to figure out a way. Yeah, maybe it'll be like a scanning system, like heavy MTL. There's just no way around it. You're not getting backstage.
Oh, God. Let's hope not. But before we go, I want to thank you guys so much for your time. For those of you watching, we just coordinated this interview about maybe 5 minutes before it actually happened. But as you mentioned, you have some new music in the works. Are you planning to make a direct follow-up to Conformicide, or are you going to kind of do something different and make it stand out in its own entity?
Well, every record, I think we keep stretching our musical horizons further out, and I expect to do that a lot more with the next one as well. And we'll start writing in the fall, and looking to record early next year.
Working title is EFR.
EFR?
Yep. So far.
Okay.
It's probably gonna change, but
Awesome. And any more tours to further support Conformicide, or?
one last little thing we just
announced it today. We're
Yes.
gonna go out. We have 5 shows, direct support for Black Dahlia Murder.
Oh, and Power Trip's on that bill too. Right?
Yeah, and Chemist.
The trip is broken up
And
in
Ghoul.
a bunch of different chunks with
Yeah.
different bands as support, but we're on the last 5 shows of that run. So
Awesome. Well, thanks again, guys, so much. Everybody, we are here with one of Colorado's finest, Havok. Be sure to pick up Conformicide if you haven't already. New music coming soon. Catch them on their final tour off the Conformicide record with the Black Dahlia Murder and the 27 other bands that are on that bill. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York, everybody.
See you guys. Bye-bye.